In our headlines on this Friday, May 15th, here in South Korea, US President Donald Trump is on his journey back home from Beijing, having ended his state visit to China that included a total of 6 separate encounters with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. Meanwhile, here in South Korea, the benchmark KOSPI breaks past the 8,000 mark for the first time during early morning trade on this Friday, before ending lower on profit-taking. Also, Culture Minister Choi Hee-young is in the city of Miryang in Korea's Gyeongsang-namdo province to learn firsthand about the impact of government programs to breathe new life into smaller cities through culture and tourism. US President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping end their latest encounter in Beijing, with more talks over tea today and an early invitation by the former to the latter for another summit in September, this time at the White House. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
The summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping ended on Friday with a symbolic gesture at the walled-off Songnanhai complex. The two had lunch and tea at the special venue, and President Xi offered a rare glimpse into the private imperial gardens, a gesture typically reserved for China's closest allies.
这个地方我们首先以前外事活动不在这里，后来有外事活动以后极少有动权。
Both leaders characterized the 3-day visit as a fundamental shift in bilateral ties. President Trump praised the personal rapport he has built with his counterpart over the last decade, suggesting their chemistry has allowed them to bypass traditional diplomatic gridlock.
And we've settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to settle. And the relationship is a very strong one.
So far, we have established a new bilateral relationship, or rather a constructive relationship of strategic stability. This could be described as a milestone visit.
On the economic front, President Trump indicated that he is returning to Washington with significant progress toward fantastic trade deals. In an interview with Fox News, Trump described President Xi as all business, noting a pragmatic commitment to economic coordination. The U.S. leader said China has committed to major purchases of American goods, including a large order of Boeing aircraft and a significant increase in imports of U.S. agricultural products, specifically soybeans, while gradually opening parts of its economy to U.S. businesses. To manage these ongoing economic ties, the two sides have agreed to establish a new Board of Trade to handle disputes without immediately resorting to new tariffs. However, no joint statement or declaration was adopted by the two leaders for this trip. The two will meet again this year, as on Thursday Trump invited Xi to the U.S. in September. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Thursday's talks between the leaders of the US and China appear to have touched upon Tehran, but subsequent statements from Washington and Beijing stand apart with regard to the extent of such dialogue and related decision. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed during summit talks in Beijing that Iran must never obtain nuclear weapons and that the Strait of Hormuz should remain open, in a development that could help revive stalled U.S.-Iran peace negotiations. According to the White House on Thursday, both leaders agreed on the importance of keeping the strategically vital shipping route open to protect global energy supplies. Washington also stated that Xi opposed any militarization of the strait and expressed interest in increasing U.S. crude oil purchases. The agreement reflects one of Trump's key demands for ending the conflict in the Middle East. Ahead of the summit, U.S. officials had urged China to use its influence over Tehran to help ease tensions in the Gulf region. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said China has a strong interest in resolving the crisis because it relies heavily on energy shipments passing through the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also said Beijing was expected to engage figures close to Iran's leadership quietly. China, however, struck a noticeably more cautious tone after the talks. Beijing confirmed that Middle East issues were discussed, but did not specifically mention the White House claim that both sides agreed Iran should never possess nuclear weapons. Analysts say China appears reluctant to fully align with Washington's approach as it seeks to preserve leverage over Iran while protecting its own strategic interests in the region. Following the summit, Trump told Fox News that Xi had also offered to help negotiate an end to the war and support efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping. Trump says Xi expressed a willingness to play a constructive role in helping resolve the conflict and stabilize shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. president also claimed Xi assured him China would not provide military equipment to Iran, although questions remain over Beijing's broader economic and strategic ties with Tehran. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung will host his Japanese counterpart Sanai Takaichi next week. According to the Blue House, on this Friday, the two leaders will sit down on May 19th, that is next Tuesday, at the president's hometown of Andong for an expanded session of talks, a joint press conference and dinner. On their agenda is collaboration on economic and social matters of mutual interest, as well as the standoff in the Middle East. The two leaders last met in the Japanese Prime Minister's hometown of Nara Prefecture in January. The Defense Ministry here is reportedly planning to make public South Korea's blueprint for nuclear-powered submarines as early as the end of this month. According to sources, the roadmap will share the submarine's defensive nature in compliance with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, as well as the overall timeline. The move is seen as an effort to speed up related negotiations regarding the program amid slow progress in follow-up talks with the U.S. The Lee Jae-myung administration's pragmatic diplomacy includes advancing bilateral interests with partners in the global south. That being said, my colleague Oh Soo-young reached out to a senior official at the Foreign Ministry here for a better understanding of these related efforts. To take a listen.
People and partnerships are at the heart of Seoul's expanding diplomatic reach. Deputy Minister for Public Diplomacy Im Sang-woo is playing an active role in deepening ties across the global south while strengthening support for Koreans abroad. Since taking office last December, Kenya and Madagascar were among his first overseas trips, ahead of a ministerial meeting involving 54 African countries next month.
This is also in the context of our diplomacy that focuses more on strengthening our relationship with the Global South, and of course Africa is an integral part of the Global South.
Global South outreach featured in President Lee Jae-myung's summit last month, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi marking the first Korean state visit to India in 8 years. One crucial agreement supports Korean SMEs investing in India, an initiative Im personally worked on during his posting in New Delhi. His diplomacy went beyond official meetings, from creating viral videos to volunteering as a guide at India's National Museum, a first for a foreign diplomat. His outreach now informs his role overseeing Korea's, the Foreign Ministry's public diplomacy platform, supported by 20 Koreans and 20 foreign nationals representing 18 countries.
We are committed to running this channel not as just a platform to showcase Korean culture, but really a channel where genuine dialogue takes place with our friends from all over the world.
But as Korea's global reach expands, so does the responsibility of protecting some 7 million overseas nationals amid risks from armed conflict and natural disasters to transnational crime.
Our guiding principle has been to provide Koreans security, protection to a level that they would expect to have at home. So in that way, Koreans, wherever they are in the world, they can feel secure, they can feel safe, having this assurance that the Korean government will be there to provide assistance if needed.
Im last week travelled to Thailand, Cambodia and Vietnam, where Seoul is working with local authorities to tackle online scam operations involving Koreans.
The most critical tool that we can use to combat transnational crime is real-time intelligence. And there has to be a real-time sharing of intelligence amongst the law enforcement authorities. And there has to be swift and decisive action based on those real-time intelligence.
From serving in the Democratic Republic of Congo and as Korea's first resident ambassador to Madagascar, Im has built relationships from the ground up and responded to consular crises in times of conflict and pandemic. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's benchmark KOSPI passed the 8,000 mark for the first time during early trade on this Friday before closing its session lower on profit-taking. Our economics correspondent Kim Jun-hong reports.
Korea's benchmark KOSPI passed above the 8,000 mark for the first time ever during trading on Friday. The index closed at 7,493.18, down 6.12% from the previous session. The move above 8,000 came roughly 10 minutes after the opening bell, just 7 trading days after first breaking through the 7,000 mark. Yet sharp swings dominated trading throughout the day. The index seesawed between gains and losses before falling as much as 7% from the previous session during trading, triggering a sell-side sidecar at one point. Unlike the previous rally led by the country's chip giants, Friday's gains were powered by a wider group of market heavyweights. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix both ended lower, while shares of LG Electronics and Hyundai Motor moved higher. All of the gainers are part of the broader AI value chain, including sectors tied to memory chips, energy, and semiconductor materials.
One of Friday's key themes was growing attention to LG Group's shift toward AI-focused businesses, which helped lift related stocks. More broadly, Korea's market continues to see strong rallies in companies tied to the wider AI ecosystem.
During Friday's session, foreign investors continue to take profits from major chip makers. Given the outsized influence those semiconductor heavyweights have on the benchmark index, the broader market was also dragged lower by the selling pressure. With the record-breaking rally largely driven by the country's chip giants riding the semiconductor supercycle, overheating concerns and the risk of heightened volatility continue to fuel caution in the market.
Volatility in Korea's stock market has surged sharply. Historically, the gap between intraday highs and lows averaged around 1.4%, but recent swings have widened to 3 to 4%. That marks the third highest level since the global financial crisis and the pandemic.
Brokerages at home and abroad are raising their KOSPI targets, with some even talking about the index reaching 10,000. But with market volatility, attention is now on whether the rally will cool off or move higher. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
In other news now, findings for the month of April by the Bank of Korea show export prices up and import prices down, but officials remain on edge about the potential broader implications of a prolonged conflict in the Middle East. Our Ian Jin has the latest.
South Korea's export prices surged in April, with the export price index marking 187.40, up 7.1% from the previous month. This, according to data from the Bank of Korea on Friday, marks the 10th consecutive month of growth, led by the manufacturing sector, including computer, electronic, and optical equipment, and largely attributed to the sharp increase in semiconductor prices. Central bank data also shows import prices fell 2.3% on-month in April, marking the first on-month drop in 10 months. South Korea relies heavily on energy imports. The decline came as the price of Dubai crude, South Korea's benchmark, fell 17.8% on month to $105.07 per barrel, affected by the U.S. and Iran agreeing to a ceasefire on April 7th. However, prolonged geopolitical tensions in the region continue to pose upward risks for future raw material supplies. Prices of raw materials fell 9.7% in April from a month earlier, while intermediate goods rose 2.1%. Despite these uncertainties, the country's net barter terms of trade index improved, jumping 14.3% on year. The South Korean economy continues its recovery trend on the back of strong semiconductor exports, and domestic consumption has maintained its recovery. However, as the Middle East conflict remains ongoing, consumer sentiment has weakened, while rising global oil prices are intensifying financial burdens on the people. Presiding over a meeting of economy-related ministers Friday morning, Finance Minister Gu Yun-chul said that as the war drags on, its impact is becoming evident.
Even amidst the impact of the war in the Middle East, our economy is demonstrating the resilience of a Republic of Korea that grows stronger in times of crisis, with exports, the current account balance, and stock market indices reaching all-time highs. However, it is also true that as the war prolongs and the burden on the real economy, including consumer prices and employment, is becoming visible alongside the impact on our industries.
The government will closely monitor changes in domestic and international situations to minimize the economic hardships faced by the people, as it also works to promptly implement supportive measures through a supplementary budget. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
On the local political front, candidate registration for the June 3rd local elections and parliamentary by-elections comes to a close on this Friday at 6 p.m. And later this evening, the National Election Commission will assign candidate numbers. Voters are set to elect mayors and governors in metropolitan cities and provinces, as well as superintendents of education and heads of smaller local administrative districts. The official campaign period will kick off on May 21st and continue through June 2nd. Early voting is scheduled for May 29th and the 30th. Culture Minister Choi Young was in the city of Miryang in Korea's Gyeongsangnam-do province to learn firsthand about the impact of government programs to breathe new life into smaller cities through culture and tourism. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo was there.
Students sing and dance passionately during a performance inspired by Miryang, a traditional folk song unique to the region. In Miryang, a southeastern city grappling with population decline, these young students are also taking part in efforts to promote their hometown through local cultural performances. This has been a big help as the city has been designated as a culture city, part of a governmental program aimed at revitalizing such regions through local cultural content.
I feel like I should have visited much earlier. Local culture seems to be growing stronger on the foundations we've worked on. We'll continue listening to what support is needed and do our best moving forward.
During a two-day visit to the city, Culture Minister Choi Young also met with local residents to hear firsthand about the challenges they face. Miryang has been one of the pioneer cities to apply the government-backed half-cost travel program, and officials say they've witnessed a boost in visitor numbers. But local merchants are asking for more support.
I hope the program can be promoted earlier and backed with a larger budget so more people can benefit from it. If the half-price travel program becomes more active, it will greatly help revitalize the regional economy.
Amid the shrinking population, people relocating to the countryside and setting up their own businesses is also becoming more noticeable in the city. But some say support programs are sometimes unreachable.
I'm in my 40s, and when it comes to support programs or opportunities to participate, I've become too old to qualify. In agriculture, people are considered young enough to earn support until 50, so I hope there can be broader support for people like us as well.
It's inspiring to see the younger generation's efforts to rediscover strengths in places once weakened. And these efforts deserve continued support. More successful cases need to emerge so that others will also be inspired to follow the path.
With more support from the Culture Ministry and continued efforts to further develop the region's cultural content, the area is now looking to attract more visitors and boost regional growth. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News, Miryang.
Meanwhile, in the southern port city of Busan, starting today, Haeundae Beach is hosting its annual Sand Festival, and this year about a dozen international artists have on display a collection of carefully crafted sculptures that share the story of Busan then and now. Our culture correspondent Chung Hae-rim files this report.
Here in the port city of Busan, Haeundae Beach has been transformed into a massive outdoor gallery for the 21st annual Sand Festival. This year, the shores are playing host to a journey through Busan's history by sand, featuring 17 monumental works that bridge the city's past with its ambitious future. 11 world-class artists from 5 countries have spent weeks sculpting everything from Busan's historic spots to its modern identity as a hub for cinema and its love for baseball.
We wanted to capture the entire panoramic view of Busan within a single work. We used the natural sand right here from Haeundae Beach. We compressed the sand using molds and then carve from the very top down to the bottom. Other sculptors were actually shocked by the level of detail, specifically how we hand-carved every single window in the buildings by hand.
This piece portrays Busan during the Korean War, where it served as a temporary capital and embraced countless refugees. Pieces like this represent the city's history through sand, who truly witnessed it all. For the thousands of visitors, the scale of work is astonishing.
I'm here on a school field trip. It's so cool, and the sculptors must have put in so much care. It looks like it would have taken a long time to make.
So we're on a cruise, so we're here in Busan for the day. We wanted to come and visit the beach.
They're cool. Yeah. I like them.
Yeah. The biggest one is their favorite.
We came to have lunch nearby and heard about the Sand Festival, so we stopped by. I saw the Train to Busan piece, and it's much more detailed than I expected. You can even recognize the actors, which was really fun.
The festival offers more than just sightseeing. Thrill seekers can hit the dunes for sandboarding, while families can engage in water gun battles or learn the secrets of sand sculpting themselves. The main festivities and interactive programs run through May 18th. However, the 17 masterpieces will remain on display for the public to enjoy until June 14th. 정혜림, 아리랑 뉴스, 부산.
It was another hot day today, and daytime highs above 30 degrees Celsius are expected to continue throughout the weekend. For now, inland regions will continue to see big day-to-night temperature swings of around 15 degrees Celsius in many areas. So short sleeves will be just fine during the day this weekend, but it's still a good idea to keep a light jacket handy for cooler mornings and evenings. Clear skies tomorrow will bring strong sunshine throughout the day. That means UV levels will be very high nationwide during the daytime. Ozone concentrations are also expected to be bad in the capital area, Chungcheongdo and Jeollabuk-do provinces. So it's best to limit outdoor activities during the hottest part of the day. As for temperatures, Seoul will start the day at 18 degrees, Daejeon at 15 degrees, Busan at 14 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 31 degrees, Chuncheon, Daejeon 31 degrees, and Daegu up to even 33 degrees. The early season heat should finally back off around Wednesday next week as rain moves into the country.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us, and thank you for now.